most of the time, all the concepts are valid, but they are applied in the wrong context. So let's make sure in our team we are on the same page when we write infrastructure as code. Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about infrastructure as code and why I don't like the name infrastructure as code. The reason is very simple, because I believe infrastructure should not be treated as code in the standard way we consider code. So there are different principles we need to follow. Let's start from why we want to do infrastructure as code. So I think the main reason for infrastructure as code is for the reproducibility. So what we want to do when we create an environment in the cloud is to be able to recreate that environment. If we need to scale because we want more environments, or in case of disaster because something breaks and we need to recreate. So this is the number one use case for infrastructure as code, in my opinion. Now, the second principle I like to optimize when I write these definitions for infrastructure, so I will try to not call it code, is to have maximum readability. So for me, a YAML file is more readable than a list of if conditions and loops that you can have in your code. So that's why I think we should try to find the right balance between reducing the duplication and reducing the logic in our infrastructure as code. So if we want to minimize the duplication, I'm not sure we are really optimizing for readability, because we may end up with abstractions that may move away the real thing that we are gonna create or modify. And this happened to me a few times when I was sure I was modifying something and then a magic variable came up in the wrong environment, and that had a completely different result on the apply of my infrastructure as code. So for me, the second important thing in apart from reproducibility is the readability. So I want to have infrastructure that is readable. And why I think we should not call it infrastructure as code, because we're just confusing people, especially people that come from different backgrounds, or they are coming from, for example, application development, and they are passionate about design patterns and they try to apply the design patterns in infrastructure as code. I think that is going to have a negative impact in terms of readability and in terms of optimization, because the best practices for between application development and infrastructure definition, they are very different. They try to optimize for different type of audience, and there is also one huge difference. When you apply a change in the application and you deploy your service or your application in your environment, you realize that that application is not behaving as expected. Most of the time it's easier to roll back and use the previous version of the application, and as soon as you release the previous version, everything is fine. In the infrastructure, this is not always true. Most of the time you cannot easily go back to the previous version, so there are changes in your infrastructure that may affect your environment or your data, and in that case you need to recover from a backup, or you need to have a recover strategy. And that, in the best case, is going to take hours, but it may also take days. So this is the biggest difference, in my opinion, between the two. So the testability of your infrastructure is also critical and is hard to achieve. So that's why make your infrastructure definitions reproducible and easy to read, and don't focus on the best practices that you traditionally used in your application development. I think it's important to have this as an agreement in the team. What are we trying to optimize for? So most of the time, all the concepts are valid, but they are applied in the wrong context. So let's make sure in our team we are on the same page when we write infrastructure as code, or when we define our infrastructure, and let's make sure we optimize for the right principles. So again, the list is for me reproducibility, readability, and validation, so testing. So you want to have your infrastructure as code easy to test, and you want to have a safety net around that, and you want to have good backup strategies. Hope you like this video. Let me know what you think, how you manage your infrastructure as code, and see you in the next one. Bye.